All right, everybody. So can you believe it? We're at like the last step before finals. All right. So today we're going to talk study guide. We're going to talk the Kahoots review, the exam dates, our Friday deadline, final attendance, etc. So our bell ringer. Do you have the final exam review guide? And if you do not, where can you find it? Can anybody tell me? So if you have the final exam review guide, give me a thumbs up emoji. And then if somebody wants to unmute or type in the chat, where do we find this review guide? That would be awesome as well. No responses? Okay, which one would we find it in? So like if we're looking in the modules, which module would we find it in? Hi, Jasmine. And where else would we find it? There's a couple of places for it. We're looking for your final exam review guide. So anybody look in the announcements? There you go. So there is an announcement that talks about it says final review, final exam review. Okay. Also in our lesson and recording pages, that was the one I was trying to get you to click to, Jerry. In our this week's and last week, we had it in the last 2 weeks in our lesson and recording pages. The final exam review, as well as the link to the Kahoot, are in there as well. Okay. All right. So at this point, I want everybody to open up their review guide, please. Go ahead and grab it and make your copy, please. Hold on a second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so I need everybody to make their copy of the final exam review, please. And then if you will give me the confetti emoji when you have made your copy of the review, that way I know you've got it down. That would help. Okay, so Cameron and Josie have theirs. I see Jose, I see Jasmine. Carla. All right, so we're at 4 out of 17. I need 13 more of you guys to give me that confetti emoji. Maria's got hers, okay. Daisy does. Julian, we're at 7. 10 more. Antonio, 9 more. Elena, we need 8 more. Give you guys another minute to get that open. So obviously our learning intention, right, is to review the material from semester 2 in preparation for our final exam, which is worth 10% of your grade. Gerardo, okay. We have 9. Yexen just showed up. Yexen, you need to go either into this week's lesson and recording page to find the final exam review guide or in the announcements. But either way, I want you to open up and make your own copy and then give me the confetti emoji when you have it done. We're still missing a couple of you guys. I still have a few of you who have not given me the emoji to let me know that you have pulled up your guide. Okay, Nick has got his. Tatiana's got hers. What about Lucia? I don't think I've seen you on here, Lucia. Sierra's got hers. Vivian, do you have yours? Elena, do you have yours? David, I'm looking for yours. All right, so we're going to move on. Okay, so our end of the quarter deadline. Remember, all open assignments close at midnight on Friday, May 10th. That is in 2.5 days. Okay. Remember, we talked about this. I've given you multiple days in class to work on what you owe me. On our EverFi platform, the Money Moves course, you have 3 lessons in there that are still open until midnight on Friday. All 3 are summatives. In EverFi, in the financial literacy course, you have 7 lessons that are currently open from there. So now we're at 10 summatives. You have the Can I Survive on My Own project that has 4 parts to it. The first one, the tasks 1 through 14 worksheet, is a formative, but it's 113 point formative. You cannot afford to blow that one off. And then tasks 6, 7, and 15 are all summatives. So in the next 2.5 days, you have 13 summatives and 1 really large formative available that are open for you guys to complete, make a good grade, and turn them in. Okay. Are there any questions in regards to that? Okay. Now, let's quickly go through the final exam schedule. On your homepage is the date and time of your final, as well as in the announcement, I put the final exam schedule in there as well. So Monday is periods 1 and 2. Tuesday is periods 3 and 4. Wednesday is periods 5 and 6. Thursday is periods 7 and 8. And then if any of you guys are in any concurrent classes, they have from Monday until Tuesday. Okay. Remember, you get the 24 hours from the moment it opens to the moment it closes, and that counts as your attendance for the day of your final and this Friday, or that Friday, the 17th. And then on Monday, the 20th, everybody has an attendance assignment, which I will have opened a little early in case you want to get it done earlier than coming back and doing it on Monday, the 20th. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. All right. Let me get the final exam review, kind of our study guide open here. And so what we've done is kind of like we do with all of our things. Hang on just a second. I'm trying to respond to another student. Okay. We always start off with our vocabulary. So going back through a lot of this, some of this is a refresher. So we have things like factors of production, those resources that are used to make the goods and services that we've talked about ad nauseum, right? We know physical capital is the human-made things that help us create those. We know human capital is the training and education that goes into our employees. We know that opportunity cost is the most desirable alternative that you give up as a result of your decision. So do I study an extra hour or do I sleep? If I study for that extra hour and I'm giving up that hour of sleep that we're giving up is our opportunity cost for studying, right? Because our goal is to get a better grade. Marginal cost is the extra cost of adding 1 unit. So if you're starting to add extra hours, what extra costs are you adding? We know services are the actions or activities that you perform for another. Let's see. When we're talking taxes, so a proportional tax is a tax for which the percentage of income paid in taxes remains the same. This one is also known as the flat tax, right? We know progressive taxes, a tax for which the percentage of income paid increases as your income increases. That is what our tax system is in regards to income tax. The more you make, the more you pay. We know when we're also talking about regressive taxes, we're talking about like sales taxes, etc. Withholding, remember you guys are doing this in employment and taxes. It's the money that's taken out of your paycheck before you ever see it. Usually it's taxes, Social Security. Sometimes it's insurance or other items that are taken out before tax. And then, of course, you have things that are taken out after taxes. But ultimately, anything taken out of your paycheck before you actually get it is withholding. Tax deduction, remember when we were looking at W-4s, like what can you subtract from your gross income to lessen your tax burden? When we're talking about policies, we talked about contractionary policy. It's used to reduce economic growth. Usually they do decrease spending and or higher taxes. Contractionary policy is trying to contract the economy. Like right now, we're in massive inflation. They're trying to slow it down and contract the economy. Expansionary is the opposite. When we're in a slump or we're in a recession or even in the depression, they're trying to grow and speed up the economy. And usually they increase federal spending or they decrease taxes. I'm just glad you're here, lady. We're going through the final exam review. So contractionary, make it smaller. Expansionary, make it grow. Fiscal policy is the use of government spending and revenue collection to influence the economy. The fiscal year is a 12-month period used for budgeting purposes at the federal government level. It's October to the end of September. And we know the federal budget is a written document estimating the federal government's revenue, authorizing its spending for the coming year. Remember, this is created through the president's office and the Office of Management and Budget. They come together, all of the departments, they all make their budget. The president gets it, they zhuzh it all together, and that's what gets sent to Congress for them to approve or not approve. Couple more vocabulary words. So we've talked about comparative advantage, the ability to produce a product most effectively. So like we make planes great. China does electronics great. We make planes, they make electronics, and then we like buy from each other, right? We're using what we're best at to make the most amount of money. So the ability to produce more of a given product, the absolute advantage, we have the absolute advantage of planes, they have the absolute advantage of the electronics, okay? Import is something that is bought from another country and brought into your country, so import, bringing in. Export would be exiting out. Interdependence, a shared need of countries for resources, goods, services, labor, etc. This is the basis of globalization. We do not live in a vacuum anymore. We all work together. Some have better advantages than others. That's why we have our developed country, our developing countries, and our least developed countries. In Module 9, Lesson 10, we've talked about remittance, which is cash payment sent to workers who've migrated to a new country for family members in their home country. So people come here and they work, and then they send money back to their families. Another good example would be in the United Arab Emirates. Only about 5% of the people who live there are actual Emiratis, and the UAE is where you have Abu Dhabi and Dubai. 95% of the people that live there are expatriates who make money and then send money home to their families. So there's a lot of Filipino nannies and houseworkers. There's a lot of workers from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Nepal there as well. And so they work, they keep enough money to survive, and then they send the rest of their money home. That is remittance, okay? Sustainable development, you're trying to meet current development needs without destroying resources for future generation. The idea of for every tree you cut down, you replant 2 is the idea of that. Offshoring, the movement of some companies' resources or operations to another country. A lot of companies did that because it was cheaper to move their resources to countries that didn't charge them as much, although now a lot of them are starting to come back. Brain drain is the migration of the best educated people of less developed countries to developed nations. So that would be a lot of people that come here to the United States for education, and then they end up staying here and working instead of going back home and helping solve the issues they have there. We talked globalization, and that is just the interconnectedness of all of us. Module 10, we were talking about Nevada. So we have repeal. State and local governments have the ability to repeal laws, just like the national government does. A township would be like a really, really tiny area within a county. Municipality would be a city or a town with corporate status. Welfare are those people who are receiving some form of government assistance to ensure their economic and social well-being. Zoning, Nevada has some of the largest federal government zoning of land use, which means the majority of our land in Nevada is actually still owned by the federal government and BLM, or the Bureau of Land Management. So some of that, they allow us to use it, and it's zoned a certain way. Okay, so that's the vocab. Now, our key concepts, guys, we've talked scarcity, right? The fact that people cannot have everything they need and want. We've talked about need versus want. Need is something you need to survive. Want is something you want in addition to. And we've talked about goods and services and how we're never truly satisfied, because just as soon as you meet that need, there's more that keeps coming, right? We've talked about how important entrepreneurs are to economies. We've talked about, physical capital versus human capital when we just did our vocabulary. When we're talking about economic goals for society, and remember when we did our zombie project, we talked a lot about this. Efficiency, security, freedom, equity, and growth. All societies pursue each of these goals to some degree. Individual free is a key cultural value for Americans. We're very, very big on freedom. Security is wanting or knowing, right, that help is available if you need it. Growth, we're talking about growing a nation's economy. Equity, we're talking about depending on your society. That is, it's equity or fairness is, it's defined differently depending on where you're at. We're talking about how the benefits of economic freedom compromised by the goal of economic equity, or is inequity possibly a cost of freedom? So there's always that issue going on there. Innovation is a process of bringing new methods. This is where entrepreneurs are great for that. We've talked about taxes and fairness and equity is one of the main goals of a tax system, but it doesn't necessarily get met. Because when you start talking fairness, what is fair to one is not fair to another, and vice versa. We've talked about how you do budgets, which we just talked about, how that gets handled. We've talked about all these different types of policies, and we talked about vocabulary. We've talked globalization. We know transportation and communication were huge. The more we communicated and the easier our ability to get to and from places really started expanding markets. Even some communist countries are like, oh, we want to get in on that. Trade agreements are huge. We have, the USMCA, which is, the agreement between Mexico, Canada, and the United States. There's CARICOM in the Caribbean. There's CARICOM in South America. There's OSCAN in Asia. Like, there's all EU. All of those are trade agreements working harder, right? Are working smarter, not harder, combining together. We've talked about federalism, and we talked about this in government and how federalism is like many layers, like a layer cake. You have the federal government, you have the states, and then you have their local governments, and how they all have to work together to run the country of a whole, right? We've talked about in the state of Nevada, like our constitution, and in fact, almost all state constitutions are longer than the federal constitution. But the idea that is in the federal constitution, we see throughout the states. We see where they have areas of government that are also much like the federal government. There's executive, there's legislative, and there's judicial. We've like here, the state governor is like the president. The lieutenant governor is like the vice president. Secretary of State deals with state matters, just like the federal Secretary of State deals with the country, right? Treasury, money, controller, and the Attorney General, much like the Attorney General at the federal level. The Nevada legislature is actually made up of a Senate and an Assembly. They don't call it the House of Representatives. They call it the Assembly. Same idea, upper and lower houses. In the Nevada Constitution, it says that our Senate and our Assembly cannot exceed 75 members. Every time the U.S. Census is taken every 10 years, districts are redrawn if needed based on, movement of population. So I think that's there for the states. So local government, you have cities, towns, boroughs, and villages. Boroughs and villages are very, very tiny. A town a little bit bigger, and then of course we know cities. We know taxes help fund a lot of items, like the room taxes at the major hotels actually go towards some of our schools. We know we have a commission form in the county, which is a bunch of commissioners who work together. Trying to look and see. We know, like most cities and small towns in Nevada, the city of Las Vegas runs on a varied council manager form. So it combines political leadership of elected officials and an appointed city manager. So the city council is in charge of all policy, while the city manager is in charge of running the day-to-day operations. And then we talked about, like the reasons for having a good credit score, interest on a loan. These are all the items that you guys played around with in the EverFi lessons that we went through. So just as a reminder, for additional review material, look at the module lesson review sheets for semester 2. You can find them on all of our live session review pages. They have detailed notes and points from each lesson for semester 2. Okay, any questions on this? No? Okay, oh, hold on. My thing is doing weird stuff. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to pull the Kahoot up. So give me just a second. Let me so I can get my Kahoot going. My Kahoot's taking a while to load. I'm getting the circle. Because I would like for us to be able to play the Kahoot if my Kahoot will load. Come on. Oh, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to play the Kahoot. I'm still getting the loading circle. Well, all right. I think. Okay. All right. I finally got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're going to go to kahoot.it. And then your game pin is 9887131. Okay, I put that in the chart. Okay, I'm seeing some more kiddos popping in here. We got 7 in here, and we need 13 more. Let's give it like another minute in case anybody else has got that spinny wheel going. Got a few more kiddos in here. So let's see. We've got 11 in here, and we need 20 kids in here. So we're short like 9. Getting there, getting closer. Oh, we lost one. We need 8 more students to get into the Kahoot, please. Anybody else gonna get in? All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and play for those students who are into this. All right, here we go. Good credit is usually required for which of the following? Which one of those would you need good credit for? Alrighty, so renting an apartment. Remember we talked about this when we were talking about credit, and the better your credit, the more responsible you look, etc., right? Okay. Oh, Maya's in the lead. Which of the following could potentially damage your credit score? Yay, most of you guys remember that, right? So remember, opening new accounts is even though it's a small portion of your credit score, if you open 3 credit cards right in a row, like 1, you have a bunch of hard checks, and 2, that's an awful lot of credit to suddenly spring on there, which tends to look a little hinky, right? Good. Okay. Oops, Sierra's moving up. Look at that. Maya's still in the lead. The form filed by students to receive federal financial aid for school is known as? So FAFSA, right? That's the one where you can get grants. You can get hooked up with federal loans, but remember, loans have to be paid back, where grants you don't have to pay back. Okay, good job. Ooh, Maya and Sierra are still at the top, but I see Elena and Antonio popping up. Why are more technology companies based in the San Francisco Bay Area than any other part of the country? All right, so its resources are best suited to produce high-tech goods. That area is just a really good area for that. It's near an ocean in order to ship, etc. So it's just got a lot of stuff going for it, okay? And actually, the economy is not weaker in other areas of the country. California's economy is actually struggling harder than a lot of other areas. Okay, let's see. Maya's still in the lead. People who decide how to combine resources to create new goods and services are called. All right, so remember we talked about entrepreneurs, guys. This was one of our vocabulary words. In fact, we just talked about this. Entrepreneurs are those people who go, here's this resource, here's that. We don't have this good or service available, or I think I found a better way to do it. And they're the ones who take all of those steps, okay? Producers are the people who supply the natural goods. Consumers would be those of us who purchase them, but it's entrepreneurs who put them all together. Ooh, Sierra's in the lead. Okay, what is the benefit of competition in a free market system? So yeah, they can create new and cheaper products. When people compete for us to purchase their goods or services, they've got to do and make it in a way that we're going to want, competitor A over B, C, and D. And that leads to just a better thing for us in regards to what they're producing to get our share of the market. Sierra's still in the lead. Jasmine's up to number 2. In economic terms, what is a stock? So remember, is a share or a part ownership of a country or company, sorry. So it's like when you buy stock in a company, you own just a little bit of it, unless you buy a lot of stocks. Sierra's still in the lead. Which of the following is not a component of a free market economy? So customs and ritual dictate what people can purchase. We don't have that in a free market economy. We don't say you are only allowed to purchase X or only allowed to purchase Y or whatever. It is, we choose, individuals choose how we're going to make things, what goods get made, how much we're going to consume, etc. In a free market economy, the government's not making those decisions for us, right? We make those for ourselves, which only leaves customs and ritual. Okay, where are we at? Oop, Jasmine's in the lead. A blank is a hope of reward or fear of penalty that encourages a person to behave in a certain way. All right, so that would be an incentive, right? Good job. Jasmine's still in the lead. Halfway through. If Nike is producing shoes faster than people want to buy them, what would that mean? Okay, so there will be an excess supply and the price of Nike shoes will decrease. Good. Jasmine's still in the lead. Which condition would lead to the highest price? All right, so when you don't have very much, but everybody wants it, you can charge higher prices for it. Low supply, high demand is going to lead to the highest price possible. Sierra's on the move. In a market economy, what determines the price and quantity of most goods produced? So supply and demand, how much you have available to make it and how much people really truly want it is going to affect what the price and quantity produced. Okay. Jasmine's still in the lead. What is most likely to happen when consumers want to buy more scooters than the store has available for sale? Okay, so the price of the scooter is going to increase, right? It's if everybody wants this scooter, then they can increase the price of it. And when it's gone, it's gone. Your profit's not going to be smaller because you get to charge more to make up for not having as many. Okay. Jasmine's still in the lead. If there is an unexpected frost that damages the oranges growing in Florida, what would affect and how? So the supply of oranges is going to go down, right? Because the frost takes out a bunch of them. Okay. Jasmine's still in the lead. Cameron's up to second. Which of the following is not a form of technological progress that aids economic growth? So underemployment does not aid economic growth. Underemployment means you don't have enough of your people employed. That's not going to increase or grow your economy if you have too many people unemployed, right? Okay. Oh, Maya's up to number 2. Which of the following factors contributes the most to economic growth? So when you have a large amount of natural resources, that supplies you with what you need to be able to make more goods and services, right? So the greater economic freedom, I mean, yes, it can help, but at what point does it actually contribute to economic growth? If you don't have the natural resources, no matter how much economic freedom you have, it's not going to do you any good. You kind of need your basis, right? Those natural resources are your base, and you work up from there. Jasmine's still in the lead. Which type of tax takes a higher percentage of income from poorer people than from wealthier people? Okay, so it is regressive. Regressive means that the money that is taken out from poor people's checks is much higher than on, like, think sales tax, right? Progressive is the more income you make, the more taxes you pay. Regressive means, like with the sales tax, if you make 100,000 versus you make 30,000, every bit of taxing that you increasingly pay is going to hurt you harder at the $30,000 a year mark than the $100,000 a year mark. Okay, that's kind of the idea behind that. Jasmine and Maya, woo, even closer. How are Social Security, Medicaid, and the unemployment insurance program related? Oh my goodness. Okay, I guess we need to have a conversation about this. Okay. Social Security is not insurance. Social Security is funding given to those people who have retired. Medicaid, part of that is a form of insurance. And then unemployment insurance is money that is taken out through your jobs in case you ever are unemployed and need help financially. So they don't all provide some type of health care. They're not all provided to retirement persons because Medicaid and unemployment don't go to retired people. And they're not all forms of insurance, but they all are all forms of mandatory spending programs. So remember when we talked about the federal budget and how those mandatory spending, there are certain things that are automatically removed, like have to be paid out of the budget automatically. Those are those mandatory spending programs like Social Security, Medicaid, and unemployment. Okay. Which of the following is a tax on an imported good? All right, so a tariff. Do you remember when Trump was president and there was all those issues with China? Because China puts tariffs on all of our goods. And in fact, they tax our goods at an outrageous amount. And we only tax them at like 2%. So tariffs are anything coming into your country. You put a tax on it to make it more expensive. And the idea is that the people of your country will buy those items that are cheaper made in your country than the more expensive ones that are being imported in. Jasmine's still in the lead. Last question. What happens when a country's money supply increases faster than the goods and services it produces? Good, you guys all got it. I mean, I think that one, because you're living through inflation, kind of resonates with you guys more. All right. In third place, we had Elena. She moved up quick. Second place, Maya. And in first place, Jasmine. Good job. Cameron and Sierra came in fourth and fifth. You guys did a really good job. Okay, give me a second. Okay. All right, let's come back and look at our slideshow. All right, so we went through the final exam study guide, which hopefully all of you guys, because I asked you at the beginning of class to make yourself a copy of the final exam study guide, print it out, and you can use it when you take your final. We just went through our Kahoots review. Now remember, obviously not every question from the exam was on the Kahoot, and we couldn't put exactly every single question on the study guide. So you can always go back, and in every lesson and recording page for semester 2, we have any of our quiz study guides that you can also use, okay? We have our Canvas announcement that has all the information on when your tests are, attendance, etc. Okay. We have talked about this ad nauseum that this Friday, May 10th, all work will close at midnight. There will be no extensions. There will be no exceptions, no excuses. Because I was out the first 3 weeks of quarter 4 because of my car accident, I extended out every one of those assignments that you guys got to work on in class. I have also extended out the EverFi Money Moves lessons, the EverFi Financial Literacy lessons, like massive extensions. You guys currently have 13 summatives and one really large formative that are all open in order to bring up your grades. Okay? For attendance, the day you take your final, when you take your final, it counts as that day's attendance and Friday's attendance for next week. So taking your final gives you your final exam grade for 10%. It gives you your attendance for the day of your final and your attendance for Friday of the same week. The Monday, May 20th attendance, yes, I know, I don't understand why CCST chose a Monday, but that will also open up next week so that if you want to hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, get it done early, it's there for you. Okay? And so our success criteria for what we've been working on the entire semester is graduation, right? That's how we know we were successful. Does anybody have any? The 20th is not an actual meet, Gerardo. It's a Monday. It's an office hours with an attendance assignment. This is our last actual meeting in class. Any other questions that you guys can think of that I can put in our recording in case anybody needs to go back and double check? Okay. Okay. Give me just a second, guys. Let me go ahead and finish our recording Just as a quick reminder, this Friday is small group as well as your attendance assignment, so make sure you take care of those as well. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.